it's been clear that Fox News and Republicans have gone out of their way to look for anything they could possibly attack progressive Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez for because they're scared of her. She has very popular policies, and politically she poses a threat to them. And a Republican congressman from Kansas named Roger Marshall went on Fox News and touched on just how frightening she actually is. But he claims that it's not politicians that she's scaring. Rather, he contends that she's scaring voters. Now again, to give you a sense of how absurd this is, remember that all of her policies, with the exception of abolish ICE, are overwhelmingly popular, but nonetheless, he says that she's scaring voters, and her speaking is actually helping the GOP.
So should the GOP be embracing her message as well? This might surprise you. Our next guest says yes. Republican Congressman Roger Marshall joins us live to explain why. Sir, please explain.
Well, good morning, first of all, from Manhattan, Kansas. Why is this? When Miss Ocasio-Cortez came to Kansas along with Bernie, and when Kansans heard their story of control, that Kansans woke up and said, my gosh, this scares us to death. So it helps contrast the party of Republican Party, where we want to give you choices, versus the Democrat socialist platform of control. So our numbers are actually gone up since they came and visited.
Now, this isn't the first time that we've heard a Republican or a conservative pundit say that they want Ocasio-Cortez to speak more because she's only helping the conservative cause, because she's going to turn off voters to socialism and progressivism. But this is a horribly misguided argument to make because, again, her policies are populist. When you look at the issues that she is promoting, Medicare for all, tuition-free public colleges and universities, a federal jobs guarantee, legalizing marijuana, these are ideas that the overwhelming majority of Americans support. In fact, a majority of Republicans now support Medicare for all, albeit it may be a slim majority, but it's a majority nonetheless. But still, they're contending that her ideas are great for them, and they want her to continue speaking because she's only helping Republicans. Well, I really, really want them to keep thinking this, and I hope that this idea continues to circulate, around Republican circles, because they're digging their own grave. Now, I do want to get to what else he said, because some of the specific things that he said here really harken back to the old days of Republican rhetoric, where they try to invoke this big government boogeyman and that liberals are all socialists and they want to take away everything from you. So he states that the Republican Party, quote, wants to give you choices, whereas Democrats want to control you. Now, again, this is a talking point that's so tired, and the reason why it doesn't really work anymore is because Republicans have contradicted this notion countless times. They've proven that they are more controlling than Democrats, even if it's the case that you can point to Democrats wanting stricter gun laws as one example of them being more controlling. Well, by and large, Republicans are more controlling because Republicans want to outright ban abortion, and many still want to abolish marriage equality. Republicans also throw a tantrum at the mere thought of a transgender person using the bathroom of their choice. They refuse to get on board with marijuana legalization, and this guy is trying to pretend as if the Republicans are the pro-freedom party and they don't want to control everything that you're doing. I mean, who actually believes this? I can't find a single conservative who even would believe this nonsense. They might tell you this, but deep down, I don't think anyone who's a serious person can believe this rhetoric because it's just rhetoric. It's nonsensical. And look, if you truly want to prove to us that as conservatives you are pro-freedom and you are less inclined to control citizens than Democrats, then there's easily some policies you can endorse. You could support marijuana legalization. That's a libertarian policy. You can support a public option because even if you don't support publicly funded healthcare, you can at least give voters that option, which increases the amount of choices we have. Because, I mean, you said that you are in favor of increasing choices and freedom, so why won't you support these policies? Well, I'll tell you why. It's because he's full of shit. And there was a point in this interview where they asked him about Medicare for all, and for him, we're supposed to really believe him because this is a former doctor, so he supposedly has more credibility on the subject of healthcare. Well, listen to what he says, and it's going to become evident really quickly just how full of shit he is.
You were a practicing doctor for a number of years, sir. Tell us, as far as socialized medicine goes, what would that do to the quality of healthcare for everybody in this country if single payer was implemented?
Well, first of all, there's no such thing as Medicare for all. If they would implement their plan, it would be the end of Medicare as we know it. Our seniors' health care would go down as we'd be shifting a lot of those dollars to other people instead of saving those money for the seniors that it's been meant to serve. Additionally, if you're a mom, you would have less choices where you would take your kids, where you would take your parents, what hospital to. It would look a lot more like Medicaid or perhaps like our Veterans Administration hospitals from 4 years ago when there was a 6-month wait. So it would be the end of healthcare as we know it. If you get your health insurance through your employer, it would be the end of that. And I think 3/4 of us are actually pretty happy with their health care. It's just very expensive right now.
As a former doctor, that was a surprisingly incoherent response. He is implying, not so subtly, that Americans prefer to get health insurance through their employers. But here's a problem with that. If you lose your job, if you get laid off, guess what happens? You also lose your health insurance. That's a problem. That creates instability when it comes to healthcare, and Americans don't want instability. They want more stability. But again, he's out of touch. He doesn't get it. And he also said that, if you adopt Medicare for all, the quality of healthcare will go down. And certainly the Fox host asked that and framed it as a leading question. But he's just factually incorrect because according to the World Health Organization, we are ranked 37 when it comes to healthcare. We're not number 1. And according to the Commonwealth Fund, the U.S.'s healthcare system is ranked last in the developed world. You heard me right. We are ranked last when compared with 11 other countries with some sort of single-payer government-run healthcare system. And they do better than us when it comes to administrative efficiency, equity, access, and health outcomes. And our system doesn't just yield worse outcomes when it comes to healthcare, but we actually spend more than other countries who guarantee healthcare to all citizens. And I already said this earlier in the segment, but Medicare for all isn't just the superior option, it's also the more popular option, and his own constituents, Republicans, guess what? They're on our side now. A Reuters Ipsos poll found that 51.9% of Republicans now support Medicare for all. So you are losing this battle. Even your own base doesn't believe the bullshit that you're espousing. But because he's a doctor, theoretically speaking, he should know more about this than anyone, right? Which is why they asked him this question. Well, let me ask you this, though. Who are you going to believe? Canadian doctors who actually stand by their country's single-payer system, or a former doctor turned Republican politician who took almost $100,000 in PAC money from health industry professionals, who, unsurprisingly, happen to be his biggest donors? I mean, who are you going to believe in this situation? Someone who is bought off by the health industry, which is an industry that has a vested interest in maintaining the status quo, or Canadian doctors and just facts, empirical reality? I'll go with the latter rather than the former in this situation. So clearly, this is another instance where Fox News is trying to fearmonger about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and Republicans are claiming that her getting this national platform is really beneficial to the conservative cause. But unfortunately for these imbeciles, that is just not the case. But of course, I want them to continue believing this, because in reality, the more they talk, the more they help the progressive cause, because they look like morons when they try to fearmonger about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and they look like the disingenuous shills that they are when they attack single payer with the hackiest arguments ever that can be easily debunked if you just do a quick Google search. So the Republican Party has no argument, and as a result, they are forced to lie in order to get ahead. But unfortunately for them, progressives are winning this debate. Your own base doesn't believe you anymore. Your own base believes progressives and agrees with us that Medicare for all is the right way to go. So keep fear-mongering, keep lying and using the same rehashed talking points from the last 30 years, because clearly it's helping us.
Support this podcast by becoming a patron at patreon.com/Humanist Report.